Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 14 quarterback start or sit decisions for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to be going in depth into every single matchup from Thursday Night Football all the way until Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I believe you should start or sit the quarterbacks in every single matchup. But before we could get on into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 fantasy football championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do hit that like button down below to help boost today's video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I would also like to ask, if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there, to please do so at Notorious FNTSY. The link to my Twitter is also down below in the video description. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 14 quarterback start or sit decisions. If you guys would like your questions answered tonight, I will be live at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is not a locked and loaded time. Sometimes it's 7:10, sometimes it's 6:50, so around 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So let's get on into the video. Thursday Night Football, the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Minnesota Vikings. In this game, I love Mr. You Like That, Kirk Cousins. It appears that Dalvin Cook is going to get the nod to go today, which is a little bit surprising in my opinion, but Alexander Mattison will be obviously put on the back burner if that is the case, and Dalvin Cook will be the lead back on the team. The team is going to be without Adam Thielen in this game, but KJ Osborne will step up as the number 2 wide receiver on the team, so I think that Kirk Cousins should be just fine. We did see the Pittsburgh Steelers defense look pretty solid up against the Baltimore Ravens last week, but at the end of the day, with how this Minnesota Vikings offense has played, I understand that they lost to the Detroit Lions last week, but at the end of the day, this offense has been clicking at all cylinders all season long, and I think here up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Kirk Cousins does have the potential to be a top 5 quarterback on the week. Now, is that very likely? Obviously not, because to be a top 5 quarterback, either you have to pass for 1,000,000 yards and 1,000,000 touchdowns, or you can just be Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, any of these guys that could really just run the football, because you get so many bonus points in terms of fantasy football by running the ball. But I do think Kirk Cousins could have a nice pass assault on this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, so I like Kirk Cousins in this matchup. Big Ben did actually look pretty decent down the stretch of the game up against the Baltimore Ravens. He started off in the first half looking like absolute shit, and then the second half started, he started to look a little bit better, and he was able to lead the team to a victory here up against the Minnesota Vikings. I want to say that the Vikings are going to win the game, but you never really know. With Mike Tomlin, he could just eke his way into winning this game for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I just don't really trust Big Ben. The accuracy doesn't seem to be there. The arm strength doesn't seem to be there. Big Ben has just been a disaster all season long. Now we pivot to the Sunday slate of games, beginning with an NFC East matchup of the Dallas Cowboys at the Washington Football Team. In this game, I like both quarterbacks being Dak Prescott as well as Taylor Heinicke. This is a game that has all the makings to be a back and forth, very high-scoring game. Now, I understand that the Dallas Cowboys do have a pretty solid defense, but I do think that the Washington Football Team will be able to advance the ball pretty easily up the field in this game. I think this is going to be a very close game. With that said, I really do like Dak Prescott. I like him every single week. Seems as though Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup, the trio of wide receivers for the Dallas Cowboys, are going to be healthy in this game. Ezekiel Elliott's health is definitely up in the air, right? They said before last week's game that, oh, he's going to be just fine. He's going to get this full workload. And a couple days before that, Jerry Jones is talking about how, and the whole team's kind of talking about how, oh, maybe we end up sitting him down for a couple of weeks. And that just came out that he won't be 100% healthy for the next 2 or 3 games. The reporting of Ezekiel Elliott just makes no sense. I don't understand why the team isn't just sitting him down, putting him on ice, and then having him 100% healthy for the playoff push. I don't get it. It is what it is, though. He's obviously going to be playing in this game, as will Tony Pollard. This offense of the Dallas Cowboys is just so beautiful. There's so many weapons all around, and I think Dak Prescott is able to get it done in this game and put up a very solid fantasy performance. On the other side of the ball, we have Taylor Heinicke. Now, he has nowhere near the same amount of weapons as Dak Prescott. He's got Terry McLaurin, and he's got Antonio Gibson, and then he's got, well, he did have Logan Thomas. Now he's got Ricky Seals-Jones. He's got DeAndre Carter. He's got a couple of names there for the Washington Football Team, but in reality, right, this is a much worse core in terms of an offense when you compare the Washington football team to the Dallas Cowboys, but Riverboat Ron and Taylor Heineke have been getting it done as of recently, so I do like Taylor Heineke in this game. I think the upside is immense, especially if they're crawling their way back into the game deep down in the stretch of the game, fighting to win up against the Dallas Cowboys. That will obviously help out Taylor Heineke because they will be throwing the ball a lot more. Next up, we move to the Jacksonville Jaguars at the LA Titans, and here when it comes to Ryan Tannehill, he is basically one of those bottom of the barrel starts because this is a cupcake matchup up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you guys know anything about the history of the Titans versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, as of recent years, this is typically the game where Derrick Henry runs for like 125 yards and a touchdown. That's the game where Derrick Henry ran a 99 or 100-yard touchdown a couple of years ago. Sadly, there will be no Derrick Henry in this game. They're going to rely on Dontrell Hilliard and Deonta Foreman. I think the Titans are able to get it done and win this game. The question is, when it comes to Ryan Tannehill, is how much passing is going to happen in this game, because if this is a rout, if this is an absolute dominating game, 50 Shades of Grey style, by the Tennessee Titans offense, then how much does Ryan Tannehill need to do to win this game? The answer is not much, but at the same exact time, this matchup is a cupcake matchup. The Tennessee Titans and Ryan Tannehill should be able to easily dissect this Jacksonville Jaguars defense, so I'm going to tell you to start Ryan Tannehill. Am I very confident in it? No, but this is a good matchup. In terms of Trevor Lawrence, it is so funny. No one is talking about Trevor Lawrence at all. This guy has sucked complete and utter donkey cock for the whole season. He hasn't done anything in his rookie year, and no one is saying anything. And if I'm being honest with you, it's for good reason, because Urban Meyer is such a certified fucking bozo. He's a dunce. He has no idea what he's doing. So Trevor Lawrence gets a pass. The guy's playing like shit. Doesn't even matter. You don't want to be starting Trevor Lawrence, though. Maybe when they fire Urban Meyer next year, we will see Trevor Lawrence kind of really break out and have a much better season. Next up, we pivot to a matchup between the Seattle Seahawks at the Houston Texans. I think a lot of people are going to try to get cute this week and start the neck himself, Davis Mills, because, oh, the Seattle Seahawks defense isn't all that good, so even if Davis Mills really isn't good at all at playing quarterback, I'm still going to play him. I think that's like a galaxy brain move where you're trying to basically do some mental gymnastics in your brain to outthink yourself. You understand how shitty Davis Mills is. Now, I'm not talking about all of you, but I think some people are thinking, oh, even though Davis Mills is terrible, the Seahawks defense, he'll be just fine. Don't believe in that. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Texans didn't score a single fucking point in this game. So do not start Davis Mills. Russell Wilson, definitely still a little bit hampered by that mallet finger, but he's been playing a little bit better as of recently. He's probably skedaddling out of town to New York or Denver or something after this season, but hey, Russell Wilson up against the Texans doesn't get much more simple than that. You can go ahead and fire him up, but will DK Metcalf be able to make a triumphant return and play well, or is DK Metcalf going to be left out to dry like he has been over the last couple of weeks? I don't think that really matters, though, in terms of Russell Wilson's production. Next up, we move to the Las Vegas Raiders at the Kansas City Chiefs. In this game, I love both quarterbacks. Derek Carr played all right up against the Kansas City Chiefs the last time they played. Pat Mahomes did look pretty solid in that game as well. Now, I do understand that Patrick Mahomes hasn't had that amazing season. He hasn't been the same Patrick Mahomes from the last couple of years. Now, does that mean that Patrick Mahomes is washed and this guy's career is fucking over? Of course not. The guy signed a 10-year, $7 gazillion deal, so he's going to be just fine, and he's still playing quite well. A lot of the bad plays from Patrick Mahomes aren't even really his fault. It's like the ball just bounces off the receiver's hands all the time, flies a million feet up in the air, and then the defense comes down with it. I think Patrick Mahomes should be solid in this game. Derek Carr, the same thing could be said about him. He did struggle last week, though, up against the Washington football team. I really thought that was going to be a much more high-scoring game. Did he disappoint completely? No, but he didn't have all that great of a game. But I do like him this week up against the Chiefs. I do hope that this is a high-scoring game between two division rivals. This is a very important game for the AFC playoff picture. I understand we're in week 14. There's still a couple of games left till we start talking about the playoffs as a whole, but this is a very important game in week number 14. Next up, we move to the New Orleans Saints at the Jumbo Jets. Now, speaking of mallet finger, Taysom Hill has mallet finger, but if I'm being honest with you guys, I made this joke in a video. I don't know if it was on this channel or on the Osmo channel, but what I was talking about was Taysom Hill doesn't need all 10 of these digits to go ahead and eviscerate the Jumbo Jets. He might need 9 or 8 fingers like his name was Jason Pierre-Paul. I expect Taysom Hill to go to Pound Town up against the Jumbo Jets. Now, he doesn't need to pass for 1,000,000 yards to have a good game. He is one of those perfect explanations as to why the Konami quarterback in fantasy football is true. Now, I don't like to use the term Konami quarterback, but at the end of the day, what that means is that quarterbacks with rushing upside just are way better. They're just way better in fantasy football because you just get so many extra bonus points for running the ball. In most leagues, when you pass a touchdown, you get 4 points. When you run in a touchdown, you get 6 points. It takes 25 passing yards to get 1 point. In most leagues, obviously, the scoring could be a little bit different depending on your league, but you only have to rush for 10 yards to get 1 point. So these rushing quarterbacks like Taysom Hill have such a strong advantage. This motherfucker threw for 4 or 5 interceptions. I think it was 4 interceptions up against the Dallas Cowboys, ran for over 100 yards, and had over 20 fantasy points. The guy played like complete and utter donkey shit and was still able to perform well. So Taysom Hill going up against the Jumbo Jets, am I 100% confident? Of course not, because the guy has mallet finger, but the upside is literally a top 5 quarterback on the week. Taysom Hill is also the perfect example of how fantasy football and the real NFL don't necessarily correlate, because Taysom Hill is dominant in fantasy football, but in real life, the guy's not very good. Speaking of not very good, we got Zach Wilson. That was funny. Zach Wilson did look a little bit better last week up against the Houston Texans, did win Offensive Rookie of the Game, of the Week. Pepsi gave him an award. Congratulations, Zach Wilson. Didn't look like shit for once, and I hope he looks good in this game because that will help out Elijah Moore. Zach Wilson, I think he's going to have a fine NFL career. I'm not going to call him a bust because he had a couple of bad games early on in his career. He's going to be just fine, but this week up against the Saints, I don't really want to be starting him. Next up, we move to the Atlanta Falcons at the Carolina Panthers, but before we do a deep dive into this game in terms of the quarterback position, I would like to ask if you have ended up enjoying thus far, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button as well as hitting that like button down below. It would help me out a ton. So we got Cam Newton versus the Atlanta Falcons. Wham Bam Cam, home in Carolina. Now, the last time we saw Cam Newton play, the guy looked like he had no idea what he was doing. The guy couldn't pass for shit. He was still able to run the ball, but he couldn't pass for anything up against the Miami Dolphins. Though, the Dolphins' defense is much better in terms of, just being a good defense when compared to the Atlanta Falcons. But you have to understand that the Panthers just fired their offensive coordinator. This motherfucker got fired on his off day. Tough scene. But hey, we got Cam Newton without Joe Brady going up against the Falcons. I'm going to believe in Cam Newton here. Am I very confident in it? No, but again, it's the same case with Taysom Hill. That even if this guy has a shitty passing day, he is able to overcome that, to negate it by running the rock. And I think up against the Atlanta Falcons, he will be successful, so I'm fine playing him here. In terms of Matt Ryan, did look a little bit better last week, hasn't been playing all that great over the recent stretch of games. Up against the Panthers defense, that I believe is underrated, they've been pretty confusing as well. I've talked a lot about how the Saints defense has been confusing, because one week, they look like the best defense in the National Football League. The next week, they look like they couldn't stop a fucking JV high school team. But I think that the Panthers defense has looked pretty solid in a majority of the games on the season, so I don't really want to be trusting Mr. Matty, ice, baby, dun 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 dun, quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons. Next up, we move to the Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. The last time these two teams went toe-to-toe, Lamar Jackson sucked ass, so did Baker Mayfield. I do expect a better game out of Lamar Jackson, but he's been on a downward kind of path recently. Hasn't been passing the ball too well, but he does have a lot of rushing upside. This is just a game that will probably end up being low scoring, even though I hope this is high scoring, and that does worry me a little bit about Mr. Lamar Jackson, but you're still going to play him. Baker Mayfield just isn't that good. All they got to do is run the ball to win the game, so go ahead, Baker, hand the ball off. That doesn't get you any fantasy points, but it does make you a fine quarterback. You're still a fine quarterback in the NFL. Just in terms of fantasy, I have zero interest in that. Next up, we move to the New York Football Giants at the Los Angeles Chargers. For the Giants, I literally have no idea who is going to be the starting quarterback. I wrote Jake Fromm. I've read that it's going to be Fromm. Then I've read that it is going to be the other guy with the huge neck, Mike Glennon. And then I've heard some rumblings about Daniel Jones maybe playing. It's up in the air. The most recent report I've seen is Glennon. But, like last week they said maybe Daniel Jones was going to play, so it's so up in the air. Who cares who it is, though, if it's Glennon or if it's Fromm? You're sitting him down up against the Chargers, who had a nice day up against Mr. Joey B last week. Justin Herbert, the pervert, dissected that Cincinnati Bengals defense last week, and I expect him to look very good up against the New York Football Giants defense, who just got torched by Tua Tagovailoa. Next up, we move to the Detroit Lions at the Denver Broncos, and crazy enough, Jared Goff has looked a little bit better as of recently. I have never been in the bandwagon of just punching down at Jared Goff, right? Because I actually think Jared Goff is a little bit better than people give him the credit for. Now, is he a good quarterback, a great quarterback? No, but he's not a complete and utter unmitigated disaster. Like, I honestly think if Jared Goff was on the Denver Broncos, that they would have a better chance of winning each game when compared to Teddy, because at least Jared Goff has the balls to try to throw the ball up the field, whereas Teddy Two Gloves is basically a pussy when it comes to moving the ball up the field. But hey, it is what it is. Teddy Two Gloves, who we're going to be talking about in this game, that's actually hilarious, you're sitting him down. The best way for them to win this game is to run the ball gently down the stream with Javonte Williams and potentially Melvin Gordon. So don't play Teddy Two Gloves, very similar to with Baker Mayfield, who we just discussed a little bit ago. And then we got Jared Goff here, again, looking a little bit better as of recently. This Broncos defense does scare me, but I think Jared Goff will be able to get it done as maybe a top 18 quarterback. Not a guy that I'm overwhelmingly excited to start, but is a guy that if you're kind of down bad, I think you can start this week. Next up, we move to a matchup between the San Francisco 49ers and the Cincinnati Bengals. In this game, I like Joe Burrow, but it seems to be trending towards maybe him not playing. But he did end up coming back into the game last week with his pinky finger, I believe it was, got messed up in the game. The dude's wincing on the sideline like he just took a fucking knockout blow from Mike Tyson. But hey, he was good to finish the game, played all right in that game after getting hurt up against the 49ers. This game has all the makings of a toe-to-toe, back-and-forth, Mike Tyson punch-out level game. But if Joe Burrow is banged up and, you know, maybe I'm a little bit more worried pregame, I'll let you guys know. But right now, I think if he is healthy, I'm definitely going to be playing him. Jimmy G, Jimmy Guap, Jimmy G-Spot, Jimmy Porn Star, Jimmy Garoppolo, quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. Now, the Bengals defense I thought was going to look pretty good last week. Didn't look too good up against the Chargers. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is a good quarterback, but I think he's one of those guys that's better in the NFL when compared to fantasy football because he's never really going to dissect a defense, tear a defense, a new asshole, and throw like 4 touchdowns in a game. They're going to like to run the ball. Now, Elijah Mitchell, his health is also up in the air, so maybe that won't come true in this game. Lots of injuries in this matchup, but I don't really want to be starting Mr. Jimmy Guap. Next up, we move to the Buffalo Bills at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Josh Allen versus Tom Brady after Josh Allen just faced off against mini Tom Brady Jr. in Mr. Mac Jones. So in this game, the Bills at the Buccaneers, this game reeks of points. You can sniff it through the screen. You can just envision this game having 1,000,000 points. The Bills versus the Bucs. You're going to start both of these guys. You start both of these guys regardless. Josh Allen basically just defeated the wind last week. But Nick, they lost the game. I understand they lost the game, but this dude was throwing absolute piss missiles, lasers, with the wind being 7 billion miles per hour. He absolutely eviscerated the wind, but they still obviously lost the game here up against the Bucs. I think he bounces back. Tom Brady, absolutely surgical last week up against the Atlanta Falcons. I expect another good showing from Mr. Tampa Bay Tom Brady. Next game here, we got Sunday night football between the Chi-Town Bears at the Green Bay Packers. Justin Fields should be the starter in this matchup based upon all I've seen, and that's all fine and dandy. Going to be fun to see Justin Fields play, but in reality, this game is going to be 4 quarters of domination by the Green Bay Packers. So I love Aaron Rodgers here, and I'm not starting Justin Fields. Like, I think they may get their back blown out here. Might score 0 points in this game. Aaron Rodgers going to be dominant up against the Bears because, as he said last time they played, he owns the Chicago Bears. Final game here, the LA Rams at the Arizona Cardinals. The first time these two teams faced off, I believe, was October 3rd in week number 4. We saw Matthew Stafford. That was on fire. That was a team that was on fire. They got slain in that game, but hey, they're looking to come back after having a nice game up against the Jaguars. But Nick, that's just the Jaguars. I understand, but maybe they got the monkey off their back, you know, where they were just getting spacked up by these teams. Now they're looking a little bit better, feeling a little bit better here up against the Cardinals. I like Matty Snapback. I like Kyler Murray. I like this being a high-scoring game, just like it was earlier on in the season in week numero 4. So I like Kyler, and I like Matthew Stafford. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure to hit that like button as well as that subscribe button. I would appreciate it a ton. I love you guys all so much. I hope a great rest of your guys' day, and as always, good boy.